How big is it? Yeah, that's good.
Put first like this, twist. First you have to. Yes,
Yeah, I got
please.
it.
Mataji is going to do the introduction.
Okay.
Oh, you're doing Kirtan?
For 5 minutes, Ramli wants to.
Yeah.
Maybe wait a little more, huh? There's probably more.
Yeah,
time.
must be.
So let him sing first, huh?
Yeah.
No, yeah, I'm trying to turn down the.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama,
Hare Krishna, dear devotees. We're very happy to welcome Her Grace Devaki Mataji. So, Devaki Mataji had joined ISKCON in 1985 in Australia, Sydney. The disciple of His Holiness Niranjan Maharaj. So Mataji during the Grahastha years had for 10 years opened up the pioneer temples in former Soviet Union. It was very adventurous. Today she was telling that KGB would be behind them trying to arrest. So in a very precarious condition, Mataji established few ISKCON centers in former Soviet Union, and from 1999 she's a renounced traveling preacher. She's traveled USA, New Zealand, Australia, South Africa, and of course Eastern and Western Europe, Russia, many different countries. And in 2014, Mataji started Institute for Spiritual Culture. So how to basically apply these concepts of Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam that we learn in our daily lives within the relationships. So that's the focus, and Mataji has also been in GBC serving for devotee care. That's the top priority in ISKCON now, devotee care among families and within community also. And so we are very happy to have her association here. 2 years back when my Prabhu asked for her visit, she said her calendar was booked 2 years. So now we are happy to have her association in person. Mataji is the author of the 6 books, which is focusing on different aspects of practical application of Vaishnava understanding. Very happy to welcome you here. Thank you so much.
Om Agyantimandasya Gyananjalasalakaya Chakshunmilitam Dena Tasmai Shri Gurave Shri Chaitanya Marupisam Stavatam Bhuttaram Swayam Upakaramayam Dadati Swavadantikam Nam Vishnavara Krishnadasa Bhuttani Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityananda
Audio.
Namaste Saraswati Devi Govani Pichayane Nivishesha Shunivari Prasadamadu Satari Vanchakapati Vasha Kripa Sindhuvevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Pavanityananda Shri Advaita Gadada Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare
Should I put it closer?
Hare Rama, Hare
Zoom.
Rama,
I did.
Okay, so thank you so much for allowing me to visit you here in Charlotte, and
That's good.
thank you to our hosts for opening your home and receiving all the Vaishnavas in your house. And yeah, it's a great pleasure for me to be here. So today's topic is the power of forgiveness, right? Thank you. Wow. More big one. Thank you. Okay, wow, amazing. Yes, so today's topic is the power of forgiveness, right? Yes. So I dare say, yes, can we be a little second? I dare say this is very relevant for all of us, because I'm sure we have all been in this situation where we get offended, where we can't so easily forgive and move on, right? Where we keep some grudges. Sometimes people remember after 20 years what this person said and did. You know, people don't let go of it and they keep some bitter feeling in their heart. Right? Yes, I think we all have that experience. So yeah, that's why I think it's a good topic to explore a little deeper. Yes. So first of all, let us remember there is the primary quality of humility, which is an extremely important quality, and that manifests in secondary qualities, like respect, like tolerance, like gratitude, patience, and also forgiveness. We can see all these qualities as secondary qualities to humility. In other words, a humble person will always be tolerant and forgiving and patient and grateful for every little thing. Whereas a proud person will never have these qualities, right? Yeah, so it's first of all interesting to see how it fits all together. You two ladies, don't you want to also sit down? Yes, please do so, if you can find. I mean, here, you know, on this sofa, you will be very comfortable here.
Just in case some elderly people come, we'll keep the space.
Oh, then you still can get up and...
I've just been labeled elderly.
Devaki, if you can come forward, then I think we will have more space there. If you can come forward. There is
Yeah.
space here.
I mean, you can also, I mean, there's room for two people, you know, at least on this big sofa. Okay, wow, yes, I'm a personalist. I like to connect with my audience and so on. So this creates a good energy. Okay, so, yeah, primary quality is humility, secondary quality is forgiveness, tolerance, and. So now, let us establish the inability to forgive is actually based on an inability to tolerate. Yeah, we will explore this a little bit more. Actually, I have a little verse book over many years of reading all different things. I have collected so many interesting things here. And there is one nice statement from Bhaktivinoda Thakur from the book Chaitanya Shikshamrita, where he says, he gives a very nice definition of forgiveness. He says, giving up the desire to punish a person for committing an offense. That is called forgiveness or tolerance. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur almost puts them as being equal, you know? So it's an interesting point, because usually when we can't forgive somebody, we actually want to maintain this desire to do something bad to that person in return, right? Yes, to get back at them. So, you know, giving up that desire to punish a person for committing an offense, for giving us some pain, that is called forgiveness, by letting go of that desire. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that is called forgiveness or tolerance. Yes. So that already gives us a clear idea how they are connected. Yes. Yeah, so that is interesting, because very often when it comes to forgiveness, we actually think this is something we do for others. But actually, the main thing is we do it for ourselves. Yes. Yes, so these things are all very subtle and deep, and often we don't really recognize things and so on, and I like to explore them a little bit and so on. So yeah, since forgiveness is based on the ability to tolerate, I want to spend this evening, the first part, looking a little bit at the quality of tolerance. And then the second part, I want to read some forgiveness meditations which I put in the False Ego book. Yeah, first of all, please, everybody switch off your mobile phones.
Sorry.
Everybody switch off. I was sharing yesterday, I travel the whole world and I don't have a mobile phone. Yes.
You're mobile yourself.
Huh?
You're moving around so many places.
Yes, without a phone. Yeah, it's possible. Mm.
For 40 years I didn't have a mobile phone.
See? Yeah, and I stuck to that, you know. Of course I have a laptop, but I keep that in my room. I don't carry it with me and it doesn't make all these funny noises. Yeah, so the phones are so distracting. Oh my God. You know, people always ask me, how do you get anything done without a phone? And I ask them, how do you get anything done with a phone? Yeah, I'm too busy to always be busy there with a phone. Yeah, so I don't want to hear any phones ringing. Okay? Yes, good.
I think we can collect donation. If more than $100, please come to us.
Yeah, or whoever has the phone ringing has to make some pizza for us tomorrow. That's also good punishment. Save the devotee. Yes, so, where was I? Yeah. Inability to tolerate, right? That's behind forgiveness. So, and first we will look a little bit at the topic of tolerance, because it's such an important topic, and then we will read some forgiveness meditations. Yes, and then we see if we have any questions. So that's the plan for the next hour or so. Yeah, so let us first look at tolerance. Because tolerance is actually the main criteria to measure a person's spiritual advancement and spiritual strength, in how tolerant the person can be. Yeah. Because tolerance, what does it mean? False ego is already a little subdued and dissolved, because what makes it difficult to tolerate is the false ego rebelling and complaining and protesting, right? Yes. Yeah, so that's why tolerance is such an important quality. We all know Haridas Thakur, Prahlad Maharaj, they are the embodiment of tolerance, right? Yes. Yes. And now, in Bhagavad Gita 269, it says, what is day to the common person is night to the introspective sage, right? So in other words, materialists, spiritualists, they have a very different approach and outlook on life, as different as day is from night, which means what is success in material life is most likely an impediment in spiritual life. And what is the topmost in spiritual life? What is it in material life? Huh? What is seen?
Failure.
Yeah, failure, being a loser. It's seen as a weakness, right? And that quality of tolerance is a perfect example of this, you know? Because in spiritual practice, it's such an important quality to strive for. But with mundane eyes, it's seen as being a weakness. What? You tolerate that? I wouldn't. I would, you know, walk out, get divorced. Who am I to tolerate this nonsense? And that's seen success with mundane vision, right? Yes. Yes, so we have to really keep this in the back of our minds. That whatever is success and glorious in material life is most likely unwanted in spiritual practice. If we don't remember this, then very easily we invite all kinds of Kali Yuga ideas into our spiritual practice, and we don't realize how they actually create an impediment on the path of bhakti. Yes. Yeah, so good to make that clear, that tolerance, such an important quality for Vaishnavas to cultivate. And even though, yes, with mundane eyes, it is seen as a weakness. So now sometimes people say, but how much can we tolerate? How much, Or people say, when I tolerate, then all this negativity builds up in me and I get all angry and I explode or I get sick, So let us be clear that there is a difference between suppressing something and tolerating. Yes. So suppressing is never the solution. Suppressing, then still things keep building up inside and we simply try and push them down. That's never the solution. So when we find ourselves in the situation that things are building up inside, then we are suppressing. We are not tolerating actually. Because when we suppress, then inside the false ego is still rebelling. Oh, they shouldn't treat you like this, and you shouldn't allow this to happen, and you should stand up for yourself. And so that's the false ego whispering all this nonsense into our ears. So then internally that false ego battle is still continuing and building up until we explode or whatever happens. So that's not tolerance, cannot be called tolerance. So true tolerance is something very different. There's two tools which we have to use to actually cultivate tolerance. So the first tool is that we have this mood. Hang on, please don't have any private talks. Wait, push. Okay. That's very distracting. So we have two tools which we need to have to cultivate true tolerance. First tool is that we have this mood, actually, I deserve so much worse. But Krishna is so kind, he only gives me one drop of what I really deserve. Right? Yeah. If we have that attitude, that will quieten down the false ego a little bit. Yeah. And what quality do we have to have this approach? Actually, I deserve so much worse. Krishna is so kind and only gives me one drop. What quality does that require? We mentioned it already, but just to exactly. That requires at least a little bit of humility. Yes. If we have this mood, how can they treat me like this? And that reflects pride. But if we have this mood, actually, I've been such a rascal in this life and so many other lives, and I actually deserve so much worse. So that shows a little bit of humility. Yeah. That's tool number one, humility. And then there is a second tool, that we have this mood of seeing Krishna's hand in the picture. That we can see any situation which comes in our way, that we can see it as Krishna trying to teach us something. That we say to ourselves, nothing happens by chance. Even the blade of grass is moving by Krishna's sanction, so there must be a reason Why Krishna arranges this for me? What is he trying to teach me? Yeah. That mood and approach is the second tool. Yes. See, usually it's very easy for us to see Krishna's arrangement in things when everything goes according to our pleasure and sense gratification. Yes, Krishna's arrangement. I got the job and I got this and that. It's all Krishna's arrangement, right? But when things are not so pleasing to our mind and senses, then it's difficult for us to see it. Oh yeah, Krishna's arrangement, you know? Yeah, but then it is especially Krishna's arrangement. The other situations where everything goes pleasing to our mind and senses, that can also be Maya's arrangement. You know, she also makes her arrangements, you know. Yes. So the challenges, you know, yes, they are the special situations where we can actually make advancement, where we can surrender to Krishna. So seeing Krishna's hand in the picture, that's actually what it means to be Krishna conscious. To see everything connected with Krishna behind it. And sometimes I have come across that, you know, that devotees for 20, 30 years, they're practicing, they do every morning, they do the puja to Lord Jagannath, and then comes some calamity. But then they can't see Krishna's hand in the picture, you know? Yes, they just can't see it. So sometimes our spiritual practice can be very external, you know? Yes. That we just externally go through the motions, you know, rattling down our rounds. Yesterday we had a whole session on chanting, you know, just mechanically getting the rounds done. And first initiation, second initiation, I'm getting up there, you know. But inside, yeah, nothing is happening. Everything stays as it is. Nothing is transforming. You know, so that's exactly why Krishna is shaking us up sometimes by sending us some little calamities and challenges, you know, because that's actually when we make some advancement, you know. So now my question to you, what does that require to see Krishna's hand in the picture? What do you think? Yeah, we said that, no? Surrender.
Faith.
Exactly, yes. It requires faith. Yeah. Faith is another so important thing for devotional life. Unflinching faith. Yes. Actually, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that faith is the currency to purchase Krishna. Yes. Actually, just the other day, where was it? Somewhere in Alachua, somewhere. One devotee asked me, oh, what currency is your favorite? We were talking about transferring money. You know, so what currency is your favorite one? I said, faith in Krishna. That's my favorite currency. That purchases Krishna. Yeah, he was a little perplexed about that answer. You know, but yeah. Yes, so faith in Krishna, that conquers Krishna's heart, you know? It's very natural. If Krishna sees that we actually have faith in him, then he is obliged. Even we have that experience in our daily relationships. If somebody has really strong faith in us, if we have some little good thing there in our heart, we will feel obliged. We will not want to let that person down and disappoint that person if that person puts faith in us, right? Yes. So Krishna is also a person, so he responds according to how much faith we have. Yeah. So faith has to be ongoingly nourished and protected. And we should keep away from anything that destroys faith. And what destroys faith, we will talk about tomorrow. Prajalpa is the topic tomorrow, right? Yes? Yes. Yeah, that's one big, thing that destroys faith. Yes, but we'll get into that tomorrow. Yeah, so in order to cultivate true tolerance, we need humility and we need faith in Krishna. Seeing his hand behind everything, and then we can actually do some internal work, and then the false ego will quieten down and things will not build up there inside. Yes. Yeah, so very, very important points. Yes. Actually, a question that comes up very often, or let me read a few. I have collected a few little quotes about tolerance. Yes. In 1848, First Canto, 18th chapter, 48, there is a pretty powerful statement. It says there, the devotees of the Lord are so forbearing, meaning tolerant, that even though they are defamed, cheated, cursed, disturbed, neglected, or even killed, they are never inclined to avenge themselves. Wow, that's Vaishnav mood, Like when we are defamed, that's a challenge to the false ego. If our reputation is ruined, yes, our image, what are people thinking of me? That's a challenge for the false ego, definitely. We are so concerned what everybody thinks of us. That's also false ego, as soon as we think, what will everybody think now? That's the false ego whispering some nonsense there. Yeah, so defined is a big challenge. Cheated also, when we are cheated, false ego is crying for justice, fairness, and often we see when there is a crime happening, in the secular world, when somebody got killed, then the relatives can only be peaceful when that person is locked up for 40 years or whatever, But until they get their punishment, they cannot be peaceful, So it's actually a false ego thing. But the false ego demands that person should be punished and. Yes, what were the others? Cursed? Well, in Kali Yuga, the curses are, thank God, they're not so powerful. Neglected. To be neglected is also a bit of a challenge to the false ego, right? When we are ignored and neglected and so on. Yeah, so that's what it means to be tolerant. A devotee tolerates all these things without this mood of taking revenge. And also in the 11th canto, there's another nice statement about tolerance. Tolerance means to patiently endure unhappiness, such as that provoked by the insults or negligence of others. So when we get insulted, that's also a challenge for the false ego. When we get insulted or neglected, So to patiently endure that kind of unhappiness which comes from that. That's what it means to be tolerant. Yeah. So now sometimes when today I'm shortening everything a little bit here. But when I discuss this topic of tolerance in more detail, then sometimes people say, mataji, out there in the material world, if we just tolerate, then people will walk all over us. You know? Exactly, right? That was on your mind? Yes. Well, to illustrate that even in mundane dealings, we have to be very carefully weighing up what to do. I do want to share with you a little story from my life. This is many years ago, 17, 18 years ago. The German taxation department charged me 1,500 euros tax, which I was not supposed to pay. They simply cheated me. And because I was traveling all the time, I missed the 3 months period where I could complain and make some statement about this. You know, somebody else had accepted the letter on my behalf. They didn't tell me what was in the letter. By the time I had gotten the letter, 3 months were over. And of course, when I saw this, I was so agitated. You know, false ego, immediately. What is this? They're cheating, they're trying to squeeze some money out of me. So I rang the taxation department, and immediately I started arguing with this lady there on the phone. And she was just saying, well, you can take the whole matter to court. You know, you missed your 3 months period. What's all this beeping noises there? So, and then, thank God, I remembered one verse in purport, which I had written in my little book. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't have remembered it. So sometimes it is quite helpful to know a little bit of Shastra. So, and I want to read this to you. Yeah. This is 4:1934. The verse is as follows. We should always remember that if something happens by providential arrangement, meaning Krishna's arrangement, we should not be very sorry. The more we try to rectify such reversals, the more we enter into the darkest region of materialistic thought. I immediately could experience this. Yeah, because I was so agitated, I couldn't even chant anymore. The whole thing was going around in my head, and you know. So, and then Prabhupada explains. Sometimes the saintly or very religious person also has to meet with reversals in life. Such incidents should be taken as providential. Although there may be sufficient cause for being unhappy, one should avoid counteracting such reversals, for the more we become implicated in rectifying such reversals, the more we enter into the darkest regions of material anxiety. Lord Krishna has also advised us in this connection. One should tolerate things instead of becoming agitated. So I remembered this. And I thought, okay, let them have it. I didn't pay much tax in this lifetime, so maybe I still owe them something. So I paid it and moved on, you know, yes. But it took me a couple of days. False ego was still rebelling. Oh, this is Krishna's Lakshmi, you could have spent it in a better way. And that's not fair, and they cheated you. And you know, so for 2 or 3 days there was still the false ego rebelling and protesting. But then, you know, good thing to remember also that we ask ourselves, is this important at the moment of death? And then you realize, no, it's not. Who cares? whether you paid the 1,500 euros or not. Nobody cares, you know? Yes. So, from a material point of view, we may be looking like the loser, you know? But from a spiritual point of view, we are actually the winner. Because we use that situation to let go of the false ego's demands. So we may be very successful in always fighting our way through life and defending and rectifying everything, you know. But then, at the moment of death, our false ego may not be dissolved and we may have to take another birth. Yes. So that, I mean, I don't want to make an absolute statement that devotees should never rectify things, you know. But we have to very carefully consider whether it's all worthwhile or whether it will just increase our mundane anxieties and I mean, just imagine having a court case with the taxation department. My God, you know, it would just, it just would ruin your whole spiritual life there, you know, with this whole absorption, you know. And of course, we all know Prabhupada was sometimes having court cases, you know, for property in Mumbai and all that. But Prabhupada did not fight for his own false ego satisfaction. That's the big difference. Prabhupada was fighting on Krishna's behalf. That's a whole different thing, you know. So, in order to make the right decision in such situations, very important to have a counselor. Yeah, a counselor, a mentor, a coach. Yeah. Just having Diksha Shiksha Guru, this is not enough. Our gurus have sometimes hundreds and thousands of disciples. They cannot know each and every person's practical situation in life. So we need this well-wishing and more experienced friend who can guide us, who can help us balance our life, and who we can open our heart to in such challenging situations, right? Because that person is aloof, you know, whereas we are attached, you know, and emotionally involved. But a person who is aloof can see things from a different angle and can guide us. Well, what is the right thing to do? Of course, the person also has to be qualified. But yeah, to have a counselor is such an important thing, you know, especially when it comes to false ego matters. Because false ego blocks our ears and our intelligence, and we can't hear and we can't understand, you know? Okay, so much about the topic of tolerance. So I do want to move on and read with you a few little forgiveness meditations, because now the whole discussion of tolerance sets a bit of a foundation to our understanding of forgiveness, you know? Because without being tolerant, we can't really be forgiving. Yes. You know, then the false ego will rebel and demand some revenge and, you know, yes. Yes, so first of all, let us remember that life in the material world will always confront us with so many unexpected disappointments and hurtful situations, right? Yes, this is life in the material world. It's unavoidable. And definitely our relationships will be filled with more joy and harmony as we learn to forgive and move on. Yes. So let us see. I'm sure we all have heard of Nelson Mandela, right? Some freedom fighter in South Africa. He was in prison for many, many years. So he's saying, as I walked out the door towards the gate that would lead to my freedom. I knew if I didn't leave my bitterness and hatred behind, I would still be in prison. Yes. So that bitterness and hatred, if we maintain these grudges, that keeps us imprisoned, actually. It will not give us true freedom, right? Then another thinker discovers, I never knew how strong I was until I had to forgive someone who was not sorry and accept an apology I never received. We can forgive others not because they deserve forgiveness, but because we deserve peace. Yes, because often we think, no, this person does not deserve that I forgive them, Yeah, we always think we mainly do this for others, but now we do it for ourselves, yes, because we deserve peace. Yes. The truth is, unless we let go, unless we forgive ourselves, that can also be difficult to forgive ourselves, right? Yes. We may have made a really big blunder, a really foolish mistake. Sometimes people fall down, in whatever ways. Falling down from sannyas is one of the, in the Shastra it says it's worse than death. Yeah, I know quite a few personalities in ISKCON who went through that journey. And they're still around, they're still practicing. That requires a lot of humility, actually. If you were some big sannyasi, do GVC, and the whole world of ISKCON knows you had some problems, some fall down, but you had to still continue and associate with devotees. Wow, this really is a challenge. And we have to learn to forgive ourselves. Otherwise, very difficult to stay in the association of devotees. And this is also a matter of the false ego, actually. Because the false ego wants us to look really good and perfect and successful and then we make some foolish mistake and our reputation is ruined. So then the false ego whispers, how could you do this? My God, and then we can't forgive ourselves, And again, we have to learn, why is Krishna arranging this? What is he trying to teach me? There must be some reason why this happened. And actually, I'm such a rascal, I deserve so much worse than this. So with that approach, we can learn to let go, and forgive ourselves. So yeah, the truth is, unless we let go, unless we forgive ourselves, unless we forgive the situation and others around us, unless we realize the situation is over, it's finished, It all happened. Okay, it's done. What's done is done. Unless we realize all that, we cannot move forward. That's the whole thing. We become stuck, stagnant on this whole thing. And again, in such a situation, a counselor can save our spiritual life. If we have one person in our life where we can openly share our heart, who can help us, to encourage us to let go, move on, forgive ourselves, and You know? We need that help of a person who is aloof and who can guide us and who has no other interest except our spiritual growth and development. That's what we need. You know? Forgiveness is not only something we do for other people, we also do it for ourselves, to get well and move on. Forgiveness does not excuse their behavior. That's also often what we think, you know, that when we forgive, then it means he's excused. But no, it doesn't mean that. It doesn't mean that. It prevents their behavior from destroying our heart. That's what forgiveness does. You know? By forgiving a person, then, you know, we protect our heart. So our heart is not ongoingly destroyed by their behavior. But it doesn't excuse their behavior. You know? Maybe it is not always about trying to fix something broken. Maybe it's about starting over and creating something better. Forgiveness is when I give up my right to hurt you for hurting me. So that's what Bhaktivinoda Thakur also says, right? It is not about letting someone off the hook for their actions. No, we don't let them off the hook. But we free ourselves of negative energies that bind us to them. That's what we do when we forgive. You know, we cut this negative connection to that person. And we don't allow them to ongoingly affect us with that negativity. You know, that's actually what happens when we forgive. Forgiveness does not erase the bitter past. It's not that we forget. No, we do remember. Oh yes, we do remember. But the memory is changed. Because it's without that bitterness and that pain we can remember when we forgive. Right? Yeah. A healed memory is not a deleted memory. Instead, forgiving what we cannot forget creates a new way to remember. That's what it does. Right? You with me here? Yeah? So by forgiving, it creates a new way to remember without that pain and bitterness. You know? But we definitely remember, and we should learn our lessons from it. You know? But we remember it at least in a neutral way. Or maybe we can even remember it in a positive way because we learned some lesson out of it also. You know? Yes. We change the memory of our past into a hope for our future. Relationships get stronger when both are willing to understand mistakes and forgive each other. Important thing also for married life, family life, right? We can offer a prayer. My dear Lord, if I hurt others, give me the strength to apologize. If people hurt me, give me the strength to forgive. So what's more difficult, to apologize or forgive? What's more difficult? Huh? Yeah, well, it takes a strong person to say sorry and an even stronger person to forgive. Yeah, I mean, even when, let's say we had some little some little tension and misunderstanding, often there's a whole ego battle that both think, oh, the other person should apologize first, you know? And then we may say, oh, I'm sorry, but actually, you know? So our apology is not so deeply coming from the heart. We maintain this attitude that actually it was your fault. But anyway, I am sorry. But actually, even if it was not our fault, but we can still honestly from the heart apologize that this negativity somehow happened. You know? Even if it was not our fault. But if something is happening and we are involved in that, which is, you know, distressing for somebody, we can feel truly sorry. No matter whether we are at fault or not, it doesn't matter, you know, so we can still truly apologize. And usually as soon as we deeply apologize from the heart, it actually melts the other person's heart. And then people say, oh, actually, I'm sorry too, it was actually my fault, you know. So usually, you know, if there's some version of humility there, can we be, Haribo, can we be a little quiet here? We are just having a seminar here, so please note. If you want to talk, then please go outside. It's very disturbing and creates restlessness. Okay. Yeah, so that's the whole thing. If we truly apologize deeply from the heart, it melts the other person's heart. And then they also feel sorry. Yes. Where are we? Yes, but to forgive, I dare say it requires more internal work, you know? Yes. And because we have to cultivate this tolerance, and that's a pretty important quality and a higher level there, you know? Forgive those who have hurt us, betrayed us, or broken our heart, for they have helped us to learn about trust and the importance of being cautious when we open our heart to others. Yes. So very often, you know, we might say something, we might share something with somebody, and then they use it against us. Well, of course, we can blame that other person and get offended, but actually we can also look at our fault of revealing these things to a person and not being careful what we say, you know. So that would be a better way of seeing things, that, okay, yes, Krishna is teaching me a lesson here, I have to be a little more careful, you know, yeah. To forgive is not always easy. At times it feels more painful than the wound we suffered, to forgive the one that inflicted it. And yet, there is no peace without forgiveness. When we forgive, we heal. When we let go, we grow. When we forgive, we heal. And when we let go, we grow. Forgiveness is about recognizing that staying resentful creates an active echo of the pain the offender caused. That's also a good way of putting it. You know? By staying resentful, by maintaining this feeling of being offended and keeping the grudges. So that simply creates an active echo of that pain, right? Yes. By saying that the awful offense the offender did is beyond forgiveness, we give them the power to keep their offense alive in our heart. That's what happens if we don't forgive. We give that person the power to, you know, keep that pain alive. we give the offender continued power over us. Yeah, so it makes it very clear how this whole process of forgiving is actually mainly for ourselves to heal and let go. You know? Forgiveness begins with the mind recognizing that there is a truthful logic in how the past cannot be changed. So whatever happened, happened. It's done, cannot be changed. But happily, the present and future can be changed. Eventually, forgiveness progresses to the heart, with the heart deciding it will no longer allow the offender's pain to take permanent residence in the heart. Eventually, the heart and mind together recognize that the choice to forgive is both logical and spiritually uplifting. Okay, well, this is basically what I wanted to share with you all. So this gives us a bit of food for thought, you know, and so we understand the ability to forgive is based on tolerance. And what are the two tools for tolerance? Humility and faith. Good. So I hope you will take a few things out of this program here, which can be a little useful for you. So let me see if we have any questions. Are there any questions on this topic, since it is a practical one? Yes.
Thank you so much for the beautiful lecture. So maybe you might have explained, but I didn't get it properly. So my question is forgiveness and apologies goes together or parallel? When we forgive someone in our mind, do we need to go and apologize? Then our false ego will relax in that way. That we are forgiving in our mind, but still something is missing. Then we need to go and apologize in front of that person.
Well, usually we say the Vaishnav etiquette is when we commit an offense, the only thing to counteract that is to go and ask for forgiveness. Right?
With that person?
Yeah. Yeah.
Face to face?
Yeah. Yes. Yes. But that's when we commit an offense. We may not feel offended, you know.
Yeah.
Right? Most likely we won't, because we were the one who committed the offense, you know. So there we should apologize. Right? Yeah, we have the story of Devaki and Ambarish Maharaj in the Bhagavatam, you know. So nothing can save us. We can go to Guru, to the Lord, this, that. No, we have to go and apologize to that person. Yes. But, you know, not forgiving, we are at the other end. You know? That somebody did something nasty to us. So then we may not really see a reason why we should apologize, because the other person did something cruel or nasty or what to us. Maybe it was as a response to what we did, so that we have to see, you know. But, well, taking the example of the taxation department here, you know, so I didn't have to apologize to them, but I had to let go, you know, and not keep the grudges there, you know, and so on, you know. Yeah. So yeah, it's simply the two sides there, you know. Yes. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Okay. What else? Over here.
Thank you, Devaki Mataji. Probably the qualities I lack the most is the primary one, humility, and that follows everything else, tolerance and lack of tolerance and lack of forgiveness.
Yes.
But I do want to play a devil's advocate because it's a very nuanced topic. Tolerance is not seen in isolation. Tolerance also requires to see what the context is. What's the context? What are the situations we should or should not tolerate? What's the background story?
Yeah.
What's the motive? So the application of tolerance requires a lot of discrimination. And if one does not have that discrimination, we can make a wrong decision. So it's always good to seek advice of when we can or cannot or should not tolerate.
Yeah.
I was just thinking in Bhagavad Gita, the whole reason Krishna spoke about Bhagavad Gita, because Arjuna was willing to tolerate. He was willing to tolerate the situation. So I don't care. I don't care if I win this kingdom and unrivaled opulence in the three worlds. And Krishna said, no. You're thinking about yourself. It's not about you. It's about this should not, the whole background should not be tolerated because it does not promote peaceful society, does not promote law and order and justice. So when it's for us, we should tolerate. That's the general principle. But if someone is abusing in whatever form or shape, then we have to see. We have to fight for that person. That's the general Vaishnava etiquette. But there can be situations where someone is abusing us, where in any shape or form, and then, you know, if you don't have that discrimination, you go, oh, okay, this is Krishna's mercy, I deserve more. I mean, there has to be a really fine balance.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, that topic always comes up when we talk about tolerance. I was waiting for that question to come.
I didn't know if anyone would ask, so I said, if no one asks this, I'm going to bring it up.
Yes. So, of course, you know, there is some things, I mean, we can even see it in such a way that it is not good for that person performing the abuse to tolerate it. Right? Yes. Yes. It will damage that person's spiritual life by, you know, doing some abusive actions towards us. It will be not good for them, you know? Yes. But yeah, see, in the general etiquette, there is a nice purport where Prabhupada says that. It's actually in the purport to 1:1848, which we read, that a Vaishnava is tolerating all these things, you know, cheating, defamed, and without taking revenge. So there in the purport, Prabhupada says, devotees are never inclined to counteract personal defamation, curses, negligence, etc. As far as such things are concerned, in personal affairs, the devotees do not care for them. But in the case of their being performed against the Lord and His devotees, then the devotees take very strong action. So the Vaishnava etiquette is that a devotee should not defend themselves, but they should defend others. Whenever somebody is wrongly treated, we should stand up and defend them. And if everybody would follow that Vaishnava etiquette, then there would be no need for us to defend, because surely somebody else would stand up and defend us, right? But unfortunately, what's happening? That we do exactly the opposite. We like to defend ourselves all the time, every day, but, and it wasn't me, and. But when we see somebody else wrongly treated, we look the other way. We don't want to get involved. Or that may damage my relationships if I stand up and say something. That's the problem. So even in situation of abuse, that's why I'm saying again and again, we have to have a counselor. So the proper path would be to reveal our mind to our counselor. And then the counselor should do something. Yes, but so often they don't. And that's the problem. Yeah, that's the problem. So when we see some abuse going on, something badly happening, then it's our duty to stand up and say something. Yes. And not worry what other people think and what effect that has on my relationships and all that. Yeah, that's what we have to learn. Right? So yes. Abuse can never be tolerated. We cannot tolerate abuse in the name of tolerating, you know? But we have to know how to go about it, you know? And even in abusive situations, the person who is abused, often it's very difficult for that person to defend, you know? Yes. So it has to come from somebody else, from the counselor. Yeah. Very important. What else? Any other questions? Well, if there's no more questions, okay.
In this material world, right, sometimes the forgiveness shows our weakness also to the people. Because we are weaker, so we are forgiving. That is one thing. And the second thing is, most of the times we forgive, but as you said, right, really, we try to suppress the things inside.
Yeah.
Okay. So how, what are the different techniques we can follow to get out of that situation, at least at that momentary time?
Well, first of all, your first comment that we are too weak and we forgive, I don't agree with that, because we just discussed what a deep internal work has to take place to truly forgive.
No, it's not we think, the others will be thinking is forgiving because he's weak. He's not strong enough, so that's why he's forgiving. I mean, he's just letting the situation go, and he's forgiving because he's on the weaker side. He's the loser side.
Letting the situation go and truly forgiving from deep within the heart is two things.
So he's talking about the other person's perception.
Other person.
Perception of thinking the person is forgiving.
It doesn't matter.
Well, that's his problem.
It doesn't matter, right? It's not
That's his
the other person's
problem.
perception, right?
You know,
It's
well,
not what you're going to have it in your heart is what matters, right? You're going to forgive the scenario.
yeah, well, what the other person thinks, it's none of our business. Let him think what he thinks, you know? But we have to do that internal work of letting go so we can move on, you know?
It's a dharma we follow to forgive people. It doesn't matter what they care about.
Yeah. And what was your other point?
Different techniques to...
Or the technique? Well, first point is always to hear about these topics, that we become more conscious. That's why I like to discuss all these subtle things, because so often we are not conscious of them, you know. Prabhupada was saying before becoming Krishna conscious, we have to become conscious first. Yes. Yes. And so often we just float in a very unconscious way through our day and our life. You know, so yeah. First is always hearing, you know, and we gave the two tools, you know, cultivating humility, trying to see Krishna's hand in the picture, and most likely, and faith, and most likely we will need the help of a counselor. Because so often this happens in our ISKCON society, that so often this happens, that there's some misunderstanding, some quarrel happening, one person feels offended, goes away, thinking, I'm not going to serve there anymore, I'm offended, how can they treat me like this? I've done so much, I've given so many donations, and now they're treating me like this. And then they're gone. Yes. Very often they fade away because people take shelter of the false ego instead of taking shelter of a counselor. Happens all the time. So that's why a counselor can be our saving grace. Because if we have that person in our life where we know we can open our heart, we can share our innermost struggles and fears and upsetness and whatever, and that person will not use it against us, and that person has no other interest except our spiritual growth and development. So there is some trust there. So we all need to have such a person. Yeah. And then any challenges can be overcome. Even any marriage problem can be solved if both sides accept guidance from a counselor and are willing to work on themselves rather than blaming the other person. That's the classic what happens in marriage. He blames her, she blames him. Nobody wants to accept guidance and do some work. And then usually it ends in divorce, And then we miss out on the whole purifying journey which married life is meant to be, because we are meant to purify ourselves by working on ourselves, So if we have a counselor who we accept guidance from and we are willing to work on ourselves, any marriage problem can be solved. Yeah. Okay. One more? Okay.
So, Mataji, Lord Krishna, actually, starting from 6th day until his pastime on earth, he killed so many demons. His biggest devotee, Arjun, killed his entire family, right? And we only talk about bhakti, we never talk about sakti, especially in ISKCON. So, and in Bhagavad Gita also he says, Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu mam anusmara yuddhacha. So he's saying anusmara me, but yuddhacha, he said to Arjun. But we very cleverly, I guess, skip the sakti part. We only talk about bhakti and tolerance and all other things. Why not sakti?
Or other people may talk about that. We've got only 1 hour, so we can't talk about everything.
Yeah, but it is there, very much there in Bhagavad Gita.
There's so many things there. There's so many things there.
You preached in Bangladesh.
Huh?
You preached in Bangladesh, right? You know the situation there.
That's all right.
From 27% Hindus in 1971 to 7% in 35 years.
That's all right.
In next 5 years, probably
we're
zero.
We're not going to get into a whole political discussion.
It's not political, Mataji, okay. It's not political, but yeah.
Can I make a comment to that?
Yes.
Shakti is not in isolation.
Real Shakti comes from Bhakti. You cannot see Shakti in isolation. And how that Shakti manifests and how it should be applied, again, requires discrimination. If we don't speak up about something, you mentioned this, I'm going to just bring it out because this is a mistake. We were discussing this before with Ukraine and Russian devotees. We do not want to get into this. This is not Prabhupada's mood and mission for our movement to become nationalistics. There's so many people that will be, Hindutva and, Ukraine and Russia and this and that. There's so many people to do that. We don't need to get involved in politics.
Also, we have to see, we have to also remember that there is a supreme personality of Godhead who allows all these things to go on because it's Kali Yuga and so it's not this regime or that government is in charge now. It's all Krishna's divine plan, And what we think doesn't matter, it doesn't change anything. So, we've got enough to work out here now how to try and get out of here.
And wars, there's just a part of material life.
Yeah.
They come and go over it's time immemorial.
Yeah.
You will have this. So you don't want to be stuck in that consciousness.
That's what you called as karma.
So,
That's what you called as karma, right?
okay. So let me tell you a few little words about these books, hoping that maybe some of you will be inspired to get some more questions. So, Spiritual Culture, Krishna's Divine System. This book is all about the different natures and qualities of man and woman. That they're very, very different because they're meant to play different roles. And we women are very powerful. We have a very powerful Shakti. A woman can bring the very best out of a man. She can bring him to his very best level of performance, spiritually or materially. Or she can ruin his life. That's the power of a woman. Yes. Oh yeah, I mean, it's all in the Bhagavatam, So many great sages fall down just hearing the tinkling of the ankle bells of a woman. But you don't hear the other way around, that some woman loses her mind by the tinkling of a man, unless he's Krishna or something. But yeah, so woman's energy much more powerful than man's energy. But we women, also Bhagavatam says, we women should be the power of inspiration to the men. And we should not compete with them. I'm sure the men like to hear that, right? Yes. So, and actually, I learned all these things in Bangladesh. So in this book, I'm describing a lot of stories from Bangladesh. Yeah, so any woman who wants to have harmonious relationships with men in her life, not only in family life, even at work or in the community dealings, we all have dealings with the other gender. So any woman who wants to have harmonious relationships with men, you better read this book. And any man who wants to get the empowerment and inspiration from a woman should also read this book. Also very helpful for young teenage girls, Yeah, because the whole book is actually about women. Yeah. So then we have sheltering relationships. That's the topic of having a counselor. We mentioned it a few times. When you read this book, you will be very clear that without having a counselor and eventually becoming one to others, we actually cannot make advancement. Very easily we stay in our comfort zone, we become stagnant and we can't move forward. And there's also a chapter on envy, topic we discuss on Sunday, how envy manifests to its seniors equals juniors, and so many other interesting things. Then we have the false ego, our constant companion and troublemaker. Title speaks for itself. Yeah, false ego, very subtle. Very easily we can feed and boost the false ego all in the name of Krishna consciousness instead of subduing and dissolving it. And yeah, we read the forgiveness meditations and there's so many other things in there. And there's a whole chapter on chanting in Japa and Kirtan, because I do conduct holy name retreats also. So how to chant, that actually the chanting helps to dissolve the false ego. So it's a powerful combination, a holy name and false ego. Then we have entering the Grihastha Ashram. This is a handbook for matchmaking. how to see that a boy and a girl are compatible for marriage. Yes. See, on my travels around the world, I meet so many unhappy, mismatched couples from Indian families. Mainly, yes. Because see, in India, the idea is there of matchmaking, which is good, but people only look at caste and money, and they don't look at divisional levels of compatibility. And what is worst, they don't give enough time to the two involved to talk about things. You know, sometimes people just meet for 15 minutes at a temple program and then the parents make the deal and whoops, you're married, you know. I mean, I'm making this joke and say even when you buy a computer, you spend a bit more time looking at this model and that model and, you know, being clear what do you need and what is important for me and what don't I want and then you settle for one decision. You know, so what about getting married? It's a lifetime decision. See, and in former times, people were sticking to the arrangement, even if it was suffering from day number one. They were sticking to it, but now they don't. And the divorce rate in India also, even in India, is really increasing in our ISKCON communities. And very often people get divorced after 6 months of marriage. Then they get to know each other and then they realize we are not on the same wavelength. So let's fine-tune our matchmaking a little. So in this book you will find a list of over 200 topics which a boy and a girl should discuss in the presence of a parent or a counselor or whoever, just to see, do we have similar tastes and moods and visions and standards we want to follow and. So it's a very important book for all people who are not married yet and the parents who want to help their children settle in harmonious and compatible marriages. So then we have Family Life as an Ashram, Secrets of Success. How to create the culture of bhakti in our home. How to spiritualize our family life. You know, very often our home life is not so a conducive place to cultivating bhakti. It requires a bit of training to really mold our life in such a way that Krishna, the holy name, Srimad Bhagavatam, are the center. Yes. So this book should be in any household. It's like a handbook for successful family life in Krishna consciousness. And there's a whole chapter on physical intimacy and marriage. Nobody talks about this, how to practice this principle of no illicit sex life in married life. You know, it's like a taboo, nobody talks about it and people are at a loss how to make things work. And. So I did a bit of research, I came across interesting episodes with Prabhupada, which not many people even have heard. So it adds a whole different perspective to the topic. So I hope this book will make our family life more Krishna conscious and yet emotionally balanced. Yes. And last but not least, the Vanaprastha Ashram. Not to mix up with Varnashram, no, it's Vanaprastha. Vanaprastha is the retired phase of family life. When the kids are grown up and settled in life, we should move on to the next phase, which is Vanaprastha. It's almost not established in ISKCON. In fact, it's the first book out in ISKCON on this topic of Vanaprastha. Yeah. And there's a whole chapter on death, meeting death with joy. What happens at that moment in all the different subtle aspects, how to prepare, how to support others in this very final journey and help them to let go and move on. It's something very important for all of us because our parents are leaving and senior devotees are leaving. And we have to know how to give good association in this final part of life. Otherwise, what's the use of all our preaching if we don't know how to support people in that crucial phase? You know? So if any of you would like to get some books, the last 4 are $20 each. The first 2 are $15 each. Many people get the whole set because they're all good topics. There's a little discount, $100 for the whole set. And you can pay cash or with Zelle. Okay, so if you want to get some books, best would be if you come to me now before you take prasadam, because I may not want to hang around and wait until you all have finished eating. Yes. So please come immediately, and it will be a great honor for me to put these books in your hands. Thank you so much for your kind attention. Srila Prabhupada ki, Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki, Gaura Premanandi. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.